So, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Sunday morning sit. I'm very happy to be back here and be able to spend this time with you. As an introduction to the meditation, there's this wonderful concept that's used sometimes for children and sometimes for adults, and that is called a time out. And one of the maybe more adult forms of times out is called a ceasefire. And perhaps you can imagine that this meditation session we're going to do this morning is a time out for you, a time out from your concerns, your worries, your plans, what's happened in the past, other places, other people. It's a time out, a temporary period of time where you're allowed, you have permission to really step away from all your responsibilities and concerns and what's happening in the world. And a ceasefire where the things that you are fighting and struggling with in yourself or in the world around you, for these minutes you're allowed to stop. Imagine maybe that this is a sacred zone to sit and meditate. Certainly for Buddhists, there's something phenomenally profound about assuming a meditation posture and whatever posture that is for you. And, it's the sacredness, the specialness of this posture is represented by the fact that the meditating Buddha is the icon of, or represents sometimes all the Buddhism. And so whatever posture you're in, here, now, to turn inwards. So to take a meditation posture that is right for you, and to gently close your eyes, and to become aware here of yourself, your body, realizing that in this sacred zone of meditation is a time to understand that the time, as time goes and present moments appear in our lives, every moment, no moment will ever reappear. And there's the unique moment of now that we sit with here to meditate. In a special place, time out, ceasefire, sacred zone, to meet ourselves in the uniqueness of this moment now, here, never to be repeated again. And to take a few long, slow, deep breaths, and as you exhale, to relax into your body, to settle in. To take some deep breaths, and as you exhale, to relax your thinking mind and let your thoughts float away, your concerns float away. Or if your concerns, your thoughts don't wander off on their own, perhaps you can dial down their intensity. Quiet your thinking a bit. Soften the mind. And then to let your breathing return to normal. And to take a few moments to discover how it is to be in your body right now. In a sense, for Buddhists in meditation, the body is not just a body. The body is the nexus, the connection to to our hearts, our minds, to the world. And to be sitting in this nexus of the body is to sit in a place where it's possible to have the time out, a ceasefire, so that we can meet our bodily experience as it is, as if it's all okay, even if it's uncomfortable. This is a time to just know and be present and to meet ourselves through the body. And if there are places in your body that you can relax, as you exhale, you might soften, relax, release some of that tightness in the muscles of your face, the muscles of your shoulders, the chest, and softening the belly. And perhaps even as you exhale, there can be a softening, relaxing in the arms, down to the hands, the fingers. And perhaps a softening of the legs, the thighs, knees, all the way down to the feet. And then within your body, as part of your bodily experience, allow your body to experience breathing. How does the body experience breathing? And perhaps to trust the simplicity of breathing, even if it's uncomfortable or a little bit forced, your breathing, it's okay. Maybe you can trust that the body can receive the breathing. The body is allowed to experience the breathing. And as you exhale, to let go of your thoughts and let go into the body breathing. to relax, to let go, are movements of freedom. A gentle letting go of thoughts is also a gentle experience of freedom. If you just let the letting go be simple and not be in a hurry and not rush off to the next thing, to let go, to relax your muscles, to open and allow the experience of breathing, is a little movement of freedom. To not overlay your expectations, desires, aversions on your experience are little movements of freedom. Perhaps the intuition or feeling of freedom can be part of sitting here in this special time, the unique time of now. Freedom from past and future. Some freedom from our preoccupations. The freedom to just breathe and not need to do anything else. The body breathing itself. Taking a time out from needing anything to be different than how it is. Allowing this moment to be itself, but to be here for the moment, in this sacred moment, this sacred attention to our experience. then as we come to the end of this sitting, what have you touched during this sitting that can be a gift to the world that you return to after the meditation? Are you a little calmer than you were before? And maybe your calmness is a gift. Are you a little bit more grounded? And your groundedness can be the gift. Are you a little bit more settled? Do you know yourself better? Are you a little freer? Was sitting today an act of patience, and your patience you can bring as a gift. Did you get a taste of letting go of thoughts and past and futures? Let go in order to have this be a ceasefire or be a time out. And this capacity to let go and be present for yourself, can that be a gift that you bring to others? May it be that this meditation that we have done today, may it bring gifts to all beings. Let it be that we consider how the benefits and merit of this practice, seen and unseen, can be done for the welfare and happiness of all beings everywhere. May it be that our meditation here can be an origin, a source for greater happiness of all beings, greater sense of safety for all beings to experience, greater freedom and greater ease. May all beings everywhere be happy. So, greetings, good morning from Redwood City. And so here we are. I'm happy to be here. And for the moment, I don't feel too much like talking. But I will start. The talk today, what I want to talk about is the three refuges, or the three jewels. The wonderful thing about these three is they're both a refuge and a support for us, and also jewels and treasures that we can experience or have for ourselves, and treasures we can share with others. And to talk about these three treasures and refuges, I'd like to tell you two fables. The first fable has to do with a group of caterpillars. who somehow ended up on neighboring plants, maybe on some of them on the same plant, on neighboring leaves. And they spent their life they've had so far munching on the leaves. And they felt very contented to be in a little community of other caterpillars because they knew that it wasn't strange to be munching green leaves, and it wasn't strange to be crawling, the way caterpillars crawl across the leaves. And they knew that they were ordinary caterpillars living ordinary lives, and they had the support of their community around them. And then one day, one of them had this kind of irresistible urge and explained that to the others. I really have this urge to wrap myself up in thread and kind of cocoon myself and just kind of see what happens and be quiet for a while. And the other caterpillar says, no, no, no. That's pretty selfish of you. We have this wonderful life here. We're sharing it and eating together. And for you to kind of withdraw from us and go into this kind of cocoon and just disappear, and that's must be the height of selfishness, and you're only thinking about yourself. And you shouldn't do that. You have to stay here in community with us. But the irresistible urge to cocoon had the upper hand, and so this caterpillar, that's what it did. And the others were a bit annoyed, some of them even angry. And so then, but then, after some time, what had been a caterpillar emerged from the cocoon as a butterfly. And the other ones said, wow. And they felt the urge too, and so they cocooned, and eventually they all became butterflies together. And re-met each other as butterflies, and then flittered around in a way, and now they were not caterpillars, they were butterflies. So then the second fable, and this fable concerns a group of monkeys living in the jungle, and they pretty much watch over themselves. This is not a social group of monkeys, and they kind of compete for food, they fight, they compete for territory, they're always like jockeying for position, and it's a kind of, each one for themselves in a kind of way. But the food is a little bit scarce in the jungle, maybe part of the reason why they are the way they are. But they happen to live underneath a cliff. It's not a very high cliff, maybe it's 20, 25 feet high. And they see up on the cliff there's kind of a valley that goes back and flat, and there's all these banana trees there, and very ripe bananas. And they try jumping up the cliff, but they can't get very high. They try getting little sticks to stand on, but they can't get high enough, and nothing works for them to get up there, and each one trying for themselves. And then one day, one of the monkeys says to the others, why don't we band together, and maybe together as a group, cooperatively, we can find a way to get up there. And initially it met with a lot of resistance, and no, that's not our way, that can't be done, I can't trust you, and I'm going to do it my way, and I don't want to lose my freedom coming together and doing something in a group. And all kinds of resistance to this idea. But after a while, maybe because they were hungry enough, they decided to try the suggestion of that first monkey. And the monkey said, okay, now 6 of you line up in a straight row facing the cliff. And now 4 of you jump up on their shoulders. And 2 of you jump up on their shoulders. And now 1 jump up on their shoulders. And lo and behold, then one monkey could climb up that like a ladder and then jump up on the cliff. And from the cliff could help the others to get up. And pretty soon they were all up on one way or the other, all managed to get up into this valley where the bananas were. And they had all the bananas they could eat, and they were up there eating, and they started kind of appreciating each other and discovered what it's like to work together. But this is nice. And then they kind of started living in a cooperative life together in this wonderful paradise of a valley. So these two fables, one represents the Buddha and one represents the Sangha. That the Buddha is a process the Buddha represents a process of freedom, a process of dropping down and kind of cocooning ourselves in a certain kind of way, especially like in meditation. It is a stepping away from our social world in some ways, our social life, our concerns, our responsibilities even. And there are times we get criticized for this, that it's selfish, that it's somehow abandoning people. But there's a process of really going inwards and settling and finding peace here, and really learning how to settle and be present in a full and dynamic and insightful way that is uninterrupted, distracted, preoccupied by other things, so that the deep inner work can go so deep that the person can go in and get turned inside out, and become butterflies, become free, and be able to fly, to become a Buddha, become free. So that's the one way. And the Sangha represents the story of the monkeys. That the Sangha is the support and the cooperation and the mutual interactions that we have with each other on the path of practice, on the path of life. And to learn and develop this freedom, to learn to develop this ability to be cooperative, to be in community, and to develop relationships so we support each other. Kind of a mutual support, like the monkeys have to mutually support each other to get up the cliff. This is one of the great life tasks, and this is part of what the Sangha is. So these are two kind of opposed movements that a person can take. One movement is to go inwards and, in a sense, kind of be apart from this inner world, this outer world, just be in the inner world and find a transformation there into something quite profound and beautiful. The other movement is to be involved with other people and connected in an important way and cooperate and really be involved with people in a rich way. And these two different ways of being sometimes are held in opposition to each other. Some people are very much into the community life, like the caterpillars were with each other, and they get upset when someone steps away from that. Some people are so much involved in their individual lives that the idea of cooperating and being involved with others is what they resist and what they don't want to do. At different phases of life, different times of practice, each of these movements is appropriate. And they shouldn't be held in opposition to each other. They each have a place. Now, what allows us to, what the Dharma is, the Dharma is kind of a bridge between these two actions, the actions of cooperation and being with people, and the actions of settling ourselves on ourselves in some deep, deep inner way, cocooning ourselves in the depths of practice. And the Dharma is kind of stands between those two. And so what is the Dharma? The Dharma is many things, and I think it's appropriate that I couldn't think of a fable to tell you, because the Dharma is something, I don't know, maybe it shouldn't be concretized in some kind of way that a fable a little bit does. But one of the meanings of Dharma, there's many meanings, is conduct, is action. And many people associate Dharma with teachings, with certain truths about nature, truths of ourselves, spiritual truths. But one of the very important meanings of Dharma is action. And the Buddha said that actions are our refuge. And he said that because the Dharma is our refuge. The Dharma is found and expressed in how we act. Some people think of the Dharma as teachings as something to believe, and there is some degree of belief and provisional belief that goes into these teachings. Some people think that Dharma is about discovering what's true, and there is some truth to that we're discovering some deeper truths about life. But there's a tendency to make the beliefs and the truths too important. Maybe because in Western religions, beliefs and maybe truths are considered, crucial and very important, and you have to believe. In the Dharma, the real meaning of the Dharma, or the most profound meaning, and how it supports us, is that it has to do with what we do, the actions we undertake. We're supported by our actions. And if we want to change, where the change to be transformed, real change doesn't happen from beliefs and doesn't quite happen from truths. But change happens by really, even if we see truth, it's actions, how we live that truth, that really begins to transform us in a deeper way. We learn by doing. And we learn the Dharma by doing in such a way that we get the feedback loop. Oh, this works. This is good. This is true. So to live a life that's full of greed and just always wanting and intensely getting up in the morning, just like, what can I get now? What can I have? I have to work and get more money and more this and that. That's an action. And that produces a very different life than a life that the action is not to be greedy and therefore not in a hurry to do anything, but maybe lives a life with generosity. Relaxed generosity versus frantic greed. Those two have a very different effect on the whole psychophysical being. Such a big effect that they each transform a person in a particular direction. We are changed by what we do regularly. And the idea of kind of being carried along in greed and being a community that supports that begins to change, very profound ways who we are. And this is what they find, for example, the genesis of group violence and hatred is going to often be in small little steps where a little bit of it is accepted and it becomes normative, and then as it's normative, then people then are a little more patient accepting of something a little bit not normative, and then more and more you have people doing horrible things to each other because the group they're in has slowly come to normalize it and seen it as being acceptable behavior. This is how they describe things like in Rwanda, where there was genocide, or in Germany during World War II. And so what we do is so important for Buddhism, and to understand that that doing things that are non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion, to live a life that is skillful and do skillful actions. And this is one of the fundamental ideas of the Dharma. It has to do with skillful action. And kusala kamma, there's a Pali term for this. And kusala kamma has to do with actions that are beneficial, that are useful, that are wholesome for ourselves. And to learn to recognize that certain way of doing things, to speaking to others, acting in the world, and certain ways of relating to ourselves internally, how we think about ourselves, how we talk to ourselves. There are skillful and unskillful. There are harmful and unharmful ways of doing that. And not just to believe that and take that as teachings or take that as a kind of truths and just leave it at that, then it's not really the Dharma. The Dharma is to turn the attention inward and see how that works for ourselves. And to recognize in ourselves that if I speak to myself this way, by the end of the day, I'm going to feel very discouraged and depressed. If I somehow am able to put that kind of thinking aside, the self-criticism, the self-hatred, if possible to put it aside, I'll get through the day very different. So I'm going to spend the day, every time those thoughts come up, I'm going to let go of them and do an equal amount of loving kindness for myself. And that letting go and substituting with goodwill can have profound effects. Those are all kind of a doing. So we learn what's a skillful doing, what's a beneficial doing, what helps us. And we start seeing what we're doing. One of the things we learn to do in the Dharma is we learn to let go of a lot of the doing which is not beneficial. And in the Western Dharma circles, there's often an emphasis on being rather than doing. And sometimes a talk like I'm giving today that emphasizes action is really troublesome for some people, because it sounds like, oh, now I have to get really busy, I have to do a lot, and there's this obligation, and I've been my whole life obligation and doing and getting and accomplishing, and here we get another message like this. But to do the doing skillfully is to recognize how to do in a way that allows us to settle and get peaceful. And a lot of that is an undoing, for sure. A lot of that is letting go of all the deleterious movements of the mind, movements of speech, movements of the body that we do, so that we can begin settling. And so there's a lot of shedding, a lot of settling that goes on, and shedding of extraneous, extra material, extra thoughts, feelings, ideas. And to cocoon ourselves can look like doing nothing, but there's a lot of undoing, the doing of undoing, that allows us to get really quiet and still and allow this inner metamorphosis to happen, to make space, to be quiet. And so there is a kind of a doing. And a classic little idea that they have in Buddhism is the idea of the karma that brings us to the end of karma, which in ordinary terms, maybe one way of understanding it is the actions that come to the end of action. The action that we do, action of letting go, for example, becoming quieter and stiller and less and less thoughts in the mind. Not so we become dull or numb, but we become clear and present in a fuller way. And there's a kind of a doing. So to do skillful doing is to see where's the movement towards freedom, where's the movement towards peace and to happiness. And sometimes the answer is to cocoon. Sometimes the answer is to be involved with others, to cooperate, to support others, to be involved in the mutual way in which human life has always been a social life, always been one way or the other that we support each other. Some people are introverted, and so they don't do it so much, actively and extravagantly or something. But we live in a life where, most of us do not grow all our own food, collect our own water, prepare our own foods. We do a tremendous social network supports our lives. So either as introverts or extroverts, finding the right way to participate in that, not because it's an obligation, but seeing skillfully how it's beneficial, how it supports us, how that brings freedom. And for people who are used to cocooning and discover their freedom there, then going into community life is where they begin to expand and test that freedom, how they get to see where they're still not free, and they can bring their practice to that. For people who live a lot of community life and have really skilled at that and navigated quite beautifully, then going cocooning for a while is very important, because then we see there what we're overlooking, maybe where the attachments are, the clingings are, or some of the deeper underlying maybe beliefs that are operating that maybe are not so healthy to have. And so going back and forth between those two modes is one of the important movements of Buddhist practice down through the ages, to understand that sometimes we cocoon and sometimes we're in community. And to figure out the balance for that is the task of the Dharma. Let the Dharma be the mirror, the attention, that allows us to recognize what's skillful and not skillful, what's on the path and what's not on the path, what is onward leading to freedom, and what is backward going. The language of ancient Buddhism is that the Dharma is what supports us so we don't fall backwards. and supports us to go forward. And how do we do that? It's not magical thinking. It's not like there's this Dharma out there that you can just magically kind of trust and it'll take care of you. The Dharma is enacted by how we live our lives, what we do. The Dharma is not for the inactive, but rather the Dharma is for those who are active enough, who are active with enough mindfulness to be able to discern for themselves which actions are skillful and unskillful, which actions, and also how to act in skillful ways, how to act in beneficial ways, how to recognize that when we act with tension or hurry or expectations, or with a lot of self-judgment or kind of critical self-monitoring, all kinds of things, that's not really skillful. Then to be upset with oneself for doing things unskillful is even more unskillfulness. But to find our way to the skillful way, to be skillful about, oh, look at that. That was harmful for myself. I just kind of criticized myself. That was an ouch. So, okay, let me have some goodwill here. Let me be generous, some compassion to all this. Let me see how I can, with open hand, open heart, open mind, open to how I am, and allow something to settle, allow something to undo, something to relax deeply. Most unskillful actions that the body, mind, and speech do involve some degree of tension, of stress, of strain, some degree of shutting down, or things kind of going, getting narrower or darker, and so to recognize that, and to learn to relax that, to relax the strain, the tension, that's the movement towards greater freedom, movements towards what's skillful, and it is what's skillful to relax that. What's skillful to do has the opposite qualities. Skillfulness has, as we do it, has qualities of ease, of calm, of relaxation, of openness, of goodness, of wholesomeness. It feels good to do the wholesome, the skillful. And so the Dharma, we see the Dharma and are supported by it when we look at our actions and are able to recognize, oh, that doesn't work. That is that's a lot of tension. That's actually kind of harmful to myself. And this other way is less harmful. And then, so what it requires of us in the Dharma world and finding the path is a ongoing mindfulness that monitors all this and sees the choices we're making about how to be with our bodies, what the actions we do, the actions of our speech, the actions of our mind, in order to choose what's wholesome. Some people will feel that hearing this, that the ongoing mindfulness to track all this, it means I'm busy, a lot of work. As soon as it becomes a lot of work and is busy, it's not wholesome. So we're not in a hurry. It's like a marathon. We're going to not going to race. We're going to take our time. We're going to pace ourselves. We're going to settle in. And the ongoing quality of continuity of practice is something we settle into, and it becomes who we are, rather than something we have to keep doing. It's not so self-consciously done. It becomes almost like second nature, kind of like riding a bicycle. At first, it's very self-conscious and a lot of effort to ride the bicycle. But at some point, if you do it for a long enough time, it becomes second nature, and it's almost like you don't have to think about it. That's what you do. So the Dharma. So the Buddha that we take refuge in is really our own capacity to go inward, to be transformed and come out as butterflies. the Sangha that we take refuge in is a support that comes from when we're working together cooperatively with others, practicing together with them. And the Dharma is that which is the mirror, the way in which we mirror, see in ourselves the nature of our actions, the quality of those actions, the consequences of those actions, so we can differentiate between what we should keep doing and what we should let go of. And then we're supported by that. That's onward leading. And these three movements, these three actions, are the three kind of approaches that is the orientation, the guidance, the orientation perspective that a person has that has gone for refuge in the Buddha Dharma Sangha. It's not magical thinking. It's really trusting that it's in ourselves that we find the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So may you enjoy your actions and be wise about how you live them. Because if you're not, you'll still, your mind, body, and speech will still act. But then it'll act out of unconsciousness and not necessarily ways that are beneficial for you. And if you do the beneficial thing, it just gets better and better. It just gets more and more wonderful. So may the refuges support you. Thank you.